If you're anything like me, there's been countless times where you've just met someone and you're having a conversation with them and they tell you their name, but you instantly forget it. And now you're at this awkward point where you have to ask for their name again. And it just seems like you're not paying attention to anything they're saying. There may also be times where you're in class and the professor is teaching you something, whether it's an equation or a problem. And then when it comes time to do the homework, you forget everything that he said. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how to actually internalize information when it's first presented to you. So that's going to help with those social settings as well as lectures where you're actually remembering the equations right away. And then I'm going to explain to you how to actually retain information. This is really important because then instead of forgetting everything that you spent so much time trying to actually learn, you'll be able to remember it in the distant future and apply it to some obscure project you thought you'd never need it for. I'm a pre-med student, so I have to actually retain information that I learn in all my classes, not only to take the MCAT, but also to apply it in the future when I'm a doctor. This also applies to a lot of courses I've taken. I'm certified as an EMT, and I'm currently getting certified as a firefighter, so I have to retain all of that information while I'm actually working as a first responder. I wouldn't want to be forgetting how to operate certain equipment or certain factoids that would help with actually saving people's lives. So it's very important for me to retain the information, and as a result, I've spent a long time optimizing different methods for actually retaining information that I'm going to share with you in this video. So the first method that I'm going to recommend has to do with retaining information. I'll get into internalizing when you first hear it later, but in order to retain information, you're going to use something called spaced repetition. And this is basically just testing yourself on the knowledge over different periods of time. Depending on how well you learn it, and when you forget it, you'll actually notice and then test yourself on it again, and therefore you'll be able to retain it over a longer period of time. How are you going to do this? Well, you could use an online flashcard system like Anki that's built for spaced repetition, or you could use something else, but it will be more difficult to actually get the repetition right if you use something like Quizlet or paper flashcards. You could use those resources, but it will be more difficult, so just keep that in mind. What I would recommend is build in a 20 to 30 minute block in your routine. I would recommend putting it either first thing in the morning or right before you go to bed. First thing in the morning is probably better because a lot of these things will be using a screen, like Anki will be on a computer, so it might be worse for your sleep if you do it at night, but whatever works for you. Then once you have this built into your schedule, boom, now you've actually set up a system where you're gonna not forget information anymore and you're gonna retain it. I will note though that you're gonna wanna pick and choose information you wanna remember, because if everything that you do, you put in Anki, that upkeep time is gonna get longer and longer, and eventually it's gonna take way longer than that 30-minute block. So don't put random useless information in there. Only put stuff that you think you will actually use in your day-to-day life. Now, when it comes to internalizing information, this has a lot to do with just being present in the moment. I know that phones get a lot of hate, but I think that they're probably partially responsible for the fact that our minds are racing all over the place and we're waiting for our turn to speak instead of actually listening to other people, whether it's in a lecture hall or in a conversation you're having with someone you just met. And that's why I think one of the first things you could do to improve your ability to internalize information has to do with one setting on your phone. If you go to settings and you go to the focus mode in your general settings, you can choose a setting called driving. And this was great because of two different reasons. First of all, you can have it send an automated text message to other people when they text you so that they'll know why you're not responding for like 6 hours. It's because you're being more focused in your work. And the second reason is because it stops you from just swiping to open your phone or having your face automatically open your phone. Instead, when you swipe up and you're in driving mode, it says, "Are you driving?" And it sort of stops you from just opening your phone, and it gives you a moment to reflect and say, am I actually opening my phone right now for a specific purpose, or is it just because I'm bored and I don't really know what else to do? And by getting that sort of pushback against opening up your phone, it causes you to be more grounded in the present moment. You don't have to follow this advice, but I personally noticed that I was a lot more attentive in conversations and in lecture when I had my phone in this mode. I think in lecture specifically, it was very helpful because instead of being on my phone, I was focusing on lecture. It's really, really inefficient to go to lecture and be on your phone because then you're basically just wasting time. You're not actually in lecture. You're not actually focusing and studying. You're just pretending like you are when really you're scrolling through some random app on your phone. So that's one way to actually better internalize information. Another way that you can internalize information easily has to do with just repeating things back to yourself, either out loud, which might be a little bit awkward if you're in a public place, or just in your mind. You can also obviously write things down, do things like taking notes, but it depends a lot on your setting. If you're in class, yes, you should be taking notes, and that's sort of a way to repeat things back to yourself. But if you're in a setting like a party or just a social setting in general, whether it's a barbecue or something, just something that where you're outside and talking to people, repeat it into your head when they say their name a couple times. Just say it to yourself a couple times. And really think about what the other person is saying to you rather than formulating your own thoughts right away. It can be difficult to get into a flow state where you're really just listening without trying to formulate a response. And then when it gets quiet, then you decide that you want to say something. That's a little bit tricky to actually develop. But, like I said, if you actually focus on limiting your use of your phone, I think that's going to help a lot. If you want to follow me on my journey to becoming a neurosurgeon, you can subscribe. Or if you have any questions, take advantage of the fact that this is still a small YouTube channel. I will respond to any questions you leave in the comments for free. So take advantage of that. And also, if you just want to show support, you can like the video as well.